right now, she is the co-founder and CEO of the Cynja, which is a multi-platform media company that aims to help educate children about technology and about some of the risks in technology. And just because I love to have a visual aid, this is the first volume in a series of books called the Cynja, which they're books for children, and they're absolutely gorgeous. And this is out there in the lobby, and you can take a look through. The third one is coming out this spring, is that right?
Yeah.
So very exciting. She formerly was the Director of Global Analyst Relations at Neustar. She continues to work as a consultant for telecommunications internet media companies in addition to the work for the Cynja. Before that, she was a senior producer at Fox News. She's done television reporting for, or is it TV and radio?
Yeah, TV
and radio, Public Radio International, KUOW in Seattle, a number of stations, and also served for a time as chairman of the Congressional Radio and TV Correspondents Association. So a lot of experience in multiple platforms and venues, and we're really happy that you're here today. And she's going to talk about, as I said before, when you are on camera, how to present yourself so that you look and sound your best.
Thank you, Linda.
Thank you, ma'am.
Let me just get some thoughts from you. Usually when I do media coaching, I'm coaching one person at a time. So the room's quite large and you all have different interests. If you have any expectations or things that you've gone into the session wondering if you're going to learn about, throw them out. Let me know. Are there any expectations or something people are hoping that they learn from this session so I can make sure I touch on them? So I get to start with a clean slate, no expectations on me today. Is that correct? Anything I say is a win at this point. Okay. So I'm going to set the table and say, usually at this point, my other job outside of the Cynja is that I train CEOs, chief technology officers, CMOs of primarily internet digital companies to interview, present, participate on panels. And how it goes is usually I go in, they have a helper of some sort, their director of communications, and then we just sit and work one-on-one for a specific event that they have to present or interview with. So that's usually how I work. The way I am presenting this is if you are not a journalist, okay? This is if you are CEO of your own company at this point. So what I might say actually might, not feel good as a journalist, but this is how the other side is played, okay? And I say that because there are going to be times in your career where you will do interviews, not because you're a journalist in the sense of I'm just going to give you information about the story, but you may have made a decision that may be controversial. The New Republic might be an example of a journalist interviewing a journalist, and it's not simpatico. You may actually cover a story in your point of view isn't the way all the other journalists see, and they want to interview you for that reason. So I'm saying just because you're a journalist does not mean that you go into an interview situation as part of the team, okay? And that's something that you have to break down right now. I mean, if it's your own organization, your buddies, and it's part of your job, yeah. But I'm taking this all the way to the fact that at points in your life, you will have to do interviews in situations that may be uncomfortable for you. And let's start there because it's easy to dial back to situations where it is comfortable and it's part of your job and you're doing it two-way and life goes on. So oftentimes, what I'm confronted with when I go into a company is that the TV fairies make TV, details don't matter, I'm just going to show up, I'm going to have a little conversation, because hell, the booker told me I'm going to have a little conversation, so easy, and that's the way, and I'm CEO of my own company, right? Like, I know what's going on, I know the market better than anyone, it's going to be just, easy. I'll just show up, life will go on. Well, I'm here to talk about how the fact in TV and radio and broadcasting and photos and any kind of image, details matter. For instance, details matter. So you could be on. First of all, there are no second chances when it comes to the visual image. When I say visual image, I'm covering TV all the way down to a screen capture, a photo. So you're on here and you're talking about brilliant things, and there is one small detail that captures everyone's eye. I mean, I think it's pretty obvious what's captured our eyes. And it does not matter at this point what you are saying, because your viewer is wondering, do I need to be concerned about violent crime or explosive diarrhea? Okay? It's over. It's over. So when I'm here, this is just a very simple. People will say, oh, TV, it's all superficial. Well, this is kind of superficial, but it kind of makes an impact, doesn't it? This is not the kind of superficial that you ignore.
Well, and you can there's always the risk of libel and everything too, right? Like if you show the wrong
image,
person,
the wrong
name.
You show, well, from a business perspective, you show the wrong financial data. You don't show the proper, there are all kinds of things with compliance and reporting. A lot of people watch for CEOs whether they should buy the stock or not. So actually details as far as numbers that they throw around absolutely matter, because they can ultimately get sued off of it. In fact, when it comes to that, I just say try to avoid it unless you're on CNBC. But exactly. First glance. Yeah. People are like, oh, I'll just wear whatever. These are nude stretchy pants. There are pants.
Look at the ankles. Quote unquote nude.
They are pants. And so unless someone's your mom, chances are they're not going to be really watching your interview. It's going to be out of the corner of their eye, and when something doesn't look right, okay, instant judgments are made. I bet many of you didn't think they were nude stretchy pants at first. They are. See, there's skin, yeah. It also says it shows what you wear actually does matter, and so you should think through your wardrobing choices. Or you may wear your nude stretchy pants. So you got to think about what you're saying.
What?
It's a click.
It's a click.
Oh,
Click.
They need to adjust their turning.
Yeah. What on earth? So this one, oh my gosh, this is the best. This was Oracle World last year. Huge conference in San Francisco, huge. Oracle World. Tried to get a hotel room in Silicon Valley, San Francisco that week. And so, clearly this company was brilliant. They knew they had their audience right there. They went and they put not one billboard. There were close to 10 of these that went up the morning of Oracle World.
Is that just the way the font is, or do they forget to put a space in?
They forgot to put the space in. Yeah, it was C and an L. Small details matter. The other part of this.
It looks like he read it. I think it's a D, and someone must have misread a piece
it.
of paper.
But even if it was one person that misread it, the thousands and thousands of dollars that went into this campaign.
They probably just want that.
They're going for edgy.
How did they put one up and then proceed to put the next 9 up?
Because
Hey, I got an order here to put up 9 billboards.
That's exactly what it
Someone who
was.
saw the proof clearly was
Yeah.
yeah, this is fine.
So this is an example of what are you saying, and don't depend on one set of eyes, okay? Have people that you trust to look over your messaging, to look at you, because people, unless you specifically ask them what do you think, they will just stamp it and move it along and put it all over Oracle World, and then 6 months later people are still showing images of this campaign. It's brilliant. So you've got to think about what you're saying, how you're saying it, because if you don't see it right, well, no one gets the correct message. And then there's this, okay? This is the Apple iPhone 6 debut, okay? Apple spends more money than probably some news organizations have for an entire year's budget on these launches. They build facilities for these things. They take their CEO out of commission for 3 days, and all he does is practice his speech for these launches. And we've got this guy with his scarf. Yeah, and there he is, and as you can see, people really, really, really love his scarf. And you know what he is? He's basically the dude holding the iPhone 6, okay? Mind you, I can't even, I could, it's in the hundreds of people that are involved in producing these launches at Apple. And then, you know, we get another view of him. And once again, more tweets, okay?
You okay there?
No. Are you thinking about the iPhone 6 right now? No.
Definitely not.
And no one else is either. That's what's so brilliant about this. Okay? This goes on and on, okay? Oh my God. I mean, the rest of us who deal with comms with these tech companies were dying, okay? Because that's what mattered. It was the iPhone 6, but all you can think about is that dude with the affinity scarf. And all of us are going, why the hell did their comms person not rip the thing off his neck and put him in a sport jacket? Because you know what just happened? Hundreds and thousands of dollars down the tube. Do you remember what, you know, for those who watched, do we remember what Tim Cook said? We're still talking about the affinity scarf guy. We don't think about the iPhone 6 because, you know, at the end of the day, details matter. They matter because they ruin you. That's why they matter. And so I'm here to say I'm going to talk about a lot of details today. And you can say, and so many that you're not going to remember. But if you just start remembering a couple a day, by the end, you get this crazy knowledge of details, and then you start talking like me. The other thing is you don't want to watch TV with me, nor do you want me to like go into your house and pick everything apart. So you think about, why did all those things happen? Okay? It's because when it comes to TV, images, audio, radio, I mean, that's the easy stuff. It sounds so easy. But what we also know is that ballerinas and the way they dance, it looks really easy. When you are a professional, your job is to make the difficult look easy. And the only way you get to that level of professional accomplishment is by practicing the small details, mastering the small details, because practice makes progress, and progress makes professional. And so when you're doing TV, you think, oh yeah, you know, I've got an iPhone, I have a video recorder, we totally record images of each other, little interviews, just gonna go up, no big deal, it's like riding a tricycle. Well, in reality, this is what it's like for most CEOs, okay? This is what it's like when they show up to a TV interview. They think, oh yeah, I'm going to totally ride a bike. And they show up so unprepared. They don't have their helmet. I mean, he doesn't even have his shoes on, okay? And then they get there and they're like, holy shit, what just happened? And now a bunch of just dribble comes out of my mouth, something that ultimately sinks me. And then I go, but it was just TV. Well, that's because you didn't prepare and you didn't think about the details. Because this is what happens. You totally wipe out, and who doesn't like to tweet about a good wipeout? And that's what people are going to remember about you. If you don't prepare, if you don't think it through, this is you. And even if you think, oh, it's a 30-second hit, no big deal. Oh, you got to think that 30 seconds through, because all those screen captures that I had were far less than 30 seconds. It was a screen capture, but it was enough to sync all those individuals. So small details equals success. Here we have someone, you know, a little girl riding her bike. She's got her training wheels, her helmet on. She's wearing long sleeves. She's got her little bell. Like, clearly, not only is she prepared, but other people have helped prepare her. And that's my other message to you. You don't have to do it alone. You don't need someone holding your hand at a certain point every time you do an interview. But when it is a big interview, get other people in there to support you and help them get you in gear. So I'm going to call this the game changer, and this is the point of view in which you need to assume this presentation is the fact that this interview is not your scooter, okay? This particular interview setting, it's not about you. You are simply the vehicle for the message. You're simply there explaining a story. This is not a two-way. For people who are in broadcast, this is not you being interviewed with the preset questions by an anchor that you know. This is not a stand-up. It's not pre-written, memorized notes. This is not your show. This is when you go in and you don't know anyone there. Even if you do know someone there, don't trust it, okay? Because ultimately it's about business. This is not your crew. They're not going to sit there and pull lettuce out of your teeth. They're not going to adjust your tie. They're not going to tell you when you have something wrong with you. In fact, they don't care about you because you're just another guest. And don't assume that anyone there who's interviewing you actually cares about your success. They don't.
I know we're talking about this in terms of
Yeah.
the presentation you give CEOs, but myself, and I imagine for several people in the room, the times I find myself on camera the most is when I write a story and MSNBC is like, come on and do a quick hit on whatever. In that case, like, I'm thinking about myself as a brand, like as a journalist. So would you still say don't think about you?
You don't think about them thinking they care about your success.
So
you're just another cog in the wheel. You're booked in. They need to fill some air. You have something interesting that they need to hear about. But whether you fail or succeed, ultimately, well, you're just another guest, and I'll find someone else.
But in that case, you can think about like yourself, and in addition to the message.
Right. But there are some journalists that I've worked with who've said, oh, well, I'm a broadcaster, it's cool, I can handle anything. Oftentimes when they go in, they're like, it's my buddy, we went to school together. Fine, well, it's more than just your buddy in that show. They have an EP who may not know you, they have a camera guy who doesn't understand. So you can't walk in and think because you're a journalist, you're prepared for an interview that could actually have conflict in it. And in this business, there will be times as a news leader that you make choices, whether it's how you run your business, how you covered a story, that will be controversial, and there will be people who want to talk with you. And you should have those conversations, but you should do it in a way where you have a chance to succeed, and the only person who can make you succeed is yourself. You're the only one who can watch out. You and your team that's, rowing in the same boat with you. But that's where I just set this out and try to break that notion of it's not easy just because you're a broadcaster already. The other part of it is if you're out there doing stand-ups, you're hosting your own shows and stuff, when you change and sit in that seat, you're no longer that anchor correspondent. You are now a guest. And that changes the dynamic. It's going from, best way to explain it, ballroom dance is going from the lead to the follower. And you have to do it elegantly, or else you come across looking like an ass. So what I have a picture here, it's not your scooter, you're along for the ride, and ultimately someone else is driving. And that may sound like, okay, I have no hope, I have no control over the situation, but my friend, you do. You can make it work. You just gotta hold on and think about things a little bit differently. It's not easy, but it's possible because you have to have strategy. You have to prepare, you have to have a sense of sincerity, discipline, humor, because ultimately, even though you're in the back seat, a lot is at risk for you, even more so than the person who's interviewing you, because it's your job and it's your reputation at stake. And for the person interviewing you, not so much. Yes, in some cases they do make stupid mistakes, but not.
But I also think there's a danger in coming off as being overly coached, and I've come across that as a producer, so I think that there's a fine line between going in really prepared, and we can tell on the other side when you've been coached by a PR person. So I'd rather have someone who's conversational. It might look awkward at times, but we're seeing that personality as opposed to someone who you can tell is like, they told me to sit this way and look this way, because then we won't even call you back again.
So there's twofold, is I'd rather not be called back than have my person look ridiculous. And there are some CEOs, like you're looking at it from your perspective. Yes, as a producer, I would not want someone who really coached. From my personal brand or my business, I'd rather have you overly coached, not asked back, than have you screw up and look like an idiot.
And there's no happy medium where you're just a normal person.
So some people, and this is when you get into who's good at doing interviews and who's just bad, and they should go find someone else in the company to do it. That's where it takes practice. So a lot of times when you see that they're so rigid, it's A, a reflection of their coach, B, a reflection of the fact they haven't practiced. They went in, they got drilled into them the day before. This is what you say, do, blah, blah, blah. They follow instruction, and it's a one time, and then they go away. So they actually haven't started thinking ahead a year or two going, I am being groomed to be CEO. I need to start giving interviews. I need to start getting comfortable in my own skin. I need to give interview. A lot of times when you see from where I've seen, where I've stood, is when you see an artificial interview, it's because the person hasn't practiced. They have memorized. There's a difference between memorizing in one short coaching session and actually practicing. And so what you will find is the worst performers for especially keynote presentations are the ones that practice the day before for 8 hours. And so even though you say to yourself right now, I'm not going to be on air tomorrow, I'm not going to be on air in a week, I'm not going to give an interview next month, you still can prepare and you can still practice so you don't turn into the interview bot that you describe. Absolutely. But then on the flip side, if I'm looking at it from a risk mitigation standpoint, I'd rather create myself an interview bot who doesn't mess up and doesn't get invited back than someone who causes my company financial harm. Yep.
I was just struck by the National Press Foundation dinner last week or whatever that was. And I think what you were saying was on display with, you mentioned the Republic, Gabriel Snyder's speech was like it felt very flat for a lot of reasons. But one of them was it seemed as though he was so nervous about it that he was so afraid to depart from the written text. And it was clear that he had been like agonizing over it for days and days and days. And then it was just like really uncomfortable in the entire room. For lots of reasons, but definitely
I do not know all the background, but I'm going to speak to this from a third-party standpoint. My initial thought when I see something like that, and knowing there were certain expectations on him, and he was probably aware of a point of view that some of the audience may have about his organization, is that there is a lot of nerves, and then sometimes what people do is they don't seek out help. They close down, they write it themselves, they practice it in their mirror, but they don't, and I think that may have also been, they're like, I don't want to deal with it, I'm going to procrastinate it down to the end, I'm going to write something out, not practice it, not show it, and I think that's a little bit what
I think though, like, our media reporter was there, and our media bloggers, like, you probably read them, they'll go after anyone.
Oh yeah.
We didn't end up writing him because it was like when you were in the room, it was so awkward, and we were all talking about it afterwards. But like, if you thought about it, it was like, oh, but what's the story? Like someone gave a really awkward speech. So it's like kind of what you were talking about, that like better boring than him attempting humor and like attempting to smooth the situation and failing and then giving us something to write about.
He was very forgettable though, like I can never recall anything he talked about, so either way.
Better forgettable though than like memorable for the wrong reason.
Correct. And on the other hand, you're looking at it as opportunity. Is you have one shot. What do you have to do to prepare? Because in that case, all the details mattered, from pacing of the speech to word choice to how he used the microphone to his posture. When you start adding all those details together, it could have been extremely powerful.
And that's where I slightly disagree. I mean, I agree with that last point, that it could have been powerful. Instead, not only is he forgettable, I thought that he hurt the reputation of the organization. I would rather have him been good than be forgettable and nervous and awkward and avoiding the elephant in the room. I thought he was bad, and I thought it brought a bad reputation on his organization. And that's my opinion.
And I think that is a perfect.
Hang on, Mark.
And I think that is a perfect way to show that when you have an opportunity, grab the bull by the horns and make the most of it.
Thank you.
Because the fact is, opportunity shows up at your door when you don't want it, when you least expect it, when you can't handle it, and you got to make room for it, or else it's just going to move on along and it's not going to come back. So make it yours.
Yeah. I feel like I need to mention, like,
Yeah.
all of the other speeches were super great. Dinner was amazing. National presentation is a wonderful thing. All the other speeches were, like, Brian Krebs was amazing. Just this walk was
No, I think it's good. I think it's good to talk about. Talk about what you see, because that's the only way you actually help improve your own performance. So, what's your message? I always start here because everything else that comes after this, you can always be thinking in your head, what's your message, what's your story. In this case, before you write your message, I should have put this in here, know where you're being interviewed. It sounds simple, but you'd be surprised at how many people are like, oh, I'm going to go on CNN. He's going to interview you. I don't know. What show? I don't know. They want me to talk about energy policy. Okay, well, that's great. But do you know how you're going to fit in, like what puzzle piece you are? Oh, they'll tell me. Okay, no. Because everything that comes after, you gotta know what puzzle piece you are. You've gotta know who's interviewing you, even if you only watch a clip of them interviewing you for a minute because you don't have the time because you're gonna be on in 20, okay? You've got to at least familiarize yourself with their show, format, style, what they expect of you, pacing. You gotta know what you're in for. Once you know what you're in for, then you start crafting your message and your appearance. So what I just threw up here is this is actual messaging that I use for my books. I do quite a few media interviews on my books. And when I started out doing these, what I just started doing was, these are just typed, here, my first reference is the Cynja. It's a cyber ninja, because no one understands what a Cynja is. So that's my first thing to myself. In my head, always first reference, I have to explain what a cyber ninja is. So let's translate this to a story you may be working on. It's a complex issue. You've always got that quick catchphrase that you write early on to explain what it is, right off the bat. I'm writing about this particular bill. It's going to do this. Continue on. You've got to explain what you're talking about if your interviewer hasn't. Now, if in this case, if my interviewer had said, oh, Cynja, cyber ninjas, I wouldn't have had to do that. In my case, most of the time, that does not happen. It's never happened. And then I think through, what is the important thing about my story? I'm talking about cyber ninjas here, but you can think about it with what you cover, okay? Healthcare, policy, the Hill, just, instead of cyber ninjas, put that in. So I'm thinking, okay, what is the story of my cyber ninjas that I want people to know when I leave this interview? I want them to know that the cyber world has a lot of crime, that there's a lot at stake. Why do kids need to learn about this? And I'm writing this, if you noticed, in short little chunks, 3-4 sentences on each one. I'm also written it, that's why we created the Cynja, the Cynja is the cyber ninja. The world needs more Cynjas. It's very conversational, and you're all writing for all kinds of formats, but when you write for your interviews, you need to be writing in a conversational format. If you're not used to writing script, write and then read it. Not read the page, read it like a person, okay? And then you'll start seeing the cadence in which you speak. This is how I speak. It probably may not work for you, so you have to find out how you can write for your voice. And then you have to actually start sitting there and typing out, what is your message? You're saying, well, how do I know what I'm going to say when I don't know my questions? Well, there's a reason why you accepted the interview, because there is something that you have written that has a particular point that you want the viewer to understand regardless of the questions. So that's what you're going to write to in your head. You're going to think of some questions. Your producer will also hopefully give you guidance on some areas that they want to touch on. If you're a controversial interview, let's just say you're in charge of the New Republic, you may guess that they could ask you difficult questions, and then it's your job to think of the difficult questions. If you can't do that, that's when you call your friend who gives you the truth and ask them, what are the hard questions I'm going to face, and let them throw them at you.
Are there ever circumstances, or is there a way to have notes? Because, I mean, obviously you would not bring that and read it.
Yeah.
But, like, there are other times where I'm doing a story where there are a couple numbers that I just want to make sure I get right. And so, like, I might try to have, like, a Post-it in front of me to glance at. But, like, how do you
Yeah.
handle having that kind of information?
Don't have it written word for word, because if you do, you're tempted to read it. When you talk about Post-it note, make sure if you're going to have a Post-it note, don't have it rumpled up. I've seen it where they're like, let me look at my Post-it note, and they can barely read what's on it. So if you're going to bring numbers or cues, and if you have time, write it in a Word document, enlarge the font, bold it, print it out, cut it to your little size, and bring it with you. Because if you have bad handwriting or the ink isn't a good contrast against your paper, as a TV producer, I hated it when people brought paper with them because all this white stuff on the desk looks awful in the shot. And then people are looking at your paper and not you. So if you are going to bring something, try to keep it minimal. And then don't touch it. Let it sit. If you know you're going to be tempted by it, really think about it. But this is not the time for origami, because people will sit there and they'll fiddle, and next thing you know, there's a swan on their table. This is, because they're nervous and they don't realize that's what they're doing.
Would you recommend trying to your best ability, make it seem like you're not referencing it at all, or
yeah, you can look down.
Okay,
Yeah,
so
especially when you're dealing. I'm going to talk about it from a CEO earnings perspective. Especially when you're talking about earnings numbers, when they see that you're actually referencing the numbers on a piece of paper, actually makes people trust what you're saying more.
Okay.
So it can be a technique if you're dealing with a very data-heavy story, if it's done right. It's just, part of it is you have to know what your temptation is and your weakness, and to make sure when you do it, it's a seamless process. I'm going to look down, see the number, say, yes, we made $8.2 million in the service last year. Yeah.
Well, that's like what, anchors on TV do, like Brian Williams, I guess, before he was, whatever. Or like anybody like that, like anytime they would cite a number or like a quote, they always like put their glasses on and like look down, because like that's less awkward to the viewer, I think, than like them reciting it as if they know it. But it seems like it's very common for people to do that.
Yeah, some numbers you just know.
Right.
Other numbers you have to be accurate. He had the luxury of putting on his glasses and reading it because there was stage drama to that.
Right.
You as a guest don't. Every second counts. So if you're going to bring your number, don't put it inside your pocket. Like, well, let me open it.
Sometimes
No.
I'll also try
Just make
to
it seamless.
I'll try to memorize the ballparks
Yeah.
too. So I'll be like, if I'm talking about a poll, I'll be like a little more than half,
Correct.
or like 3 and 4 or something, because like people lose.
Yeah, they
exacts.
do. And if you transpose a number in your head, if you're going for an exact, it makes sure that you don't do that. So it just increases the chance of your accuracy. And
I'd imagine you're probably going to get to this, so forgive me if you are, but fidgeting, like best practices.
oh yeah, we can get to that. It's in 2 slides. Does that work? So this is your message. Why I did this is so while you're getting prepared with all the other details, you can think about your message in your head. You can be thinking da 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 da. There are certain catch lines that you will want to say just because it conveys your story. So the next one is what you look like on camera. This is not about what you look like at home and what your mom likes, and your mom should think you're beautiful, but people on camera don't always feel what your mom feels. And so what I say to people is invest in your on-camera attire, okay? If you're doing on-camera interviews, or have a chance of it, just go out and make the investment for your on-camera shirt, coat, sweater, necklace, earrings. Like, that is your on-camera outfit. It's prepared, it is ironed, you don't wear it every day. It's ready to go. That you just go ahead and invest in the makeup. You may not wear foundation, especially men, every day, but it's ready to go when you need it, because you may only have an hour's notice. And in today's era, makeup is not necessarily something that people give you anymore, especially if you're doing it like a Skype type interview, web camera interview. powder, just go ahead and invest in the product. If you don't know what you're doing, either you have that friend who loves fashion, or some of the good stores actually really do have salespeople that are good at this. Nordstrom, if you call them, they will take care of you. That's what a number of newly elected officials do. Just go to Nordstrom, Pentagon City, there is a special lady there, she will take care of you. You make the investment and you just say, this is part of my job, this is how I do business. Invest in the tailoring, because with men, the jacket is important. Remember, they're going to see the shoulders, they're going to see if those little seams that are meant for tailoring are still left in there. They're going to see if the neck is too big. For ladies, they're going to see gaps where their shirts fall off shoulders. Just invest in the tailoring. An iron, okay? You may think, oh, it's totally casual. Well, your polo shirt still needs ironing because that camera, when the cameras we have now, pick up on every little detail. Or just go get it dry cleaned and let someone else do the hard work. In an emergency for women, if you're out, let's say you're out in a major disaster, another organization wants to do a quick interview with you, you haven't had a change of clothes in 2 days, you go to Walmart, everything is huge, you buy a shirt, you duct tape it up the back. Duct tape, what you do is you buy big, duct tape the back, no one will see you.
That's like the binder clips trick.
Binder clips, yeah, and then you can pull the duct tape almost like as if it were.
Like how they trick you in clothing stores.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly. You're going to trick yourself for this. And then the other thing is to keep your wardrobe. You've invested in this wardrobe, keep it where you can actually get it. If you have an office and you work from an office, keep it in the office. If you work from multiple locations and it's not in your car or something and it's in town, have it in your closet where you can give the keys to the intern and they can go in your home and pull it out and bring it back without having to explain. So you'd keep your necklace, earrings, your shirt, your jacket, like all right there in the closet or in the coat closet, ready to go. Don't fight with yourself, okay? This is the no bold prints. The one for guys is that white collar with the dark shirt. That's just awful on camera. Use those for the weekends. Big earrings, chandelier earrings. Why? I mean, it may look beautiful, but it's fighting against what you're saying, and all they're going to see are your big earrings or your nude stretch pants. They're just not going to see you. Infinity scarves, I don't think are necessarily good, but anything that's like overwhelming you. And then I call the neckline TMI, and men often think this does not apply to them, but it does. For women, if you're going to wear a button-up shirt, make sure there's a camisole underneath because there's side angle. Make sure, I mean, you have to remember the persona in which you're interviewing. You're interviewing most likely as a professional journalist. You're not Rihanna. You need to be buttoned up. I interview as a children's book author, okay? Let's say when people look at me, they want to make sure that they would let their child talk to me. They don't want to think I work a nightclub. So make sure your neckline is buttoned up or angled or whatever that you need to do, unless you are promoting a nightclub, unless you are Rihanna, unless you are in Hollywood. By all means, flaunt your assets because that is why they're interviewing you. But when you're covering the hill, probably not why they're interviewing you. For men, you may think, oh, I have no issues with neckline TMI, but my friend, you do. It is called the polo shirt without a t-shirt underneath. It's about showing me too much information about your chest. It's about letting stray hairs escape over the neckline. That's too much information when you cover policy. And so you want to check that out because high definition television lets everyone see it.
Do you ever call ahead or like research what the set coloring is like? How do you generally approach like making sure what you wear doesn't clash with the like set or like match too closely? Do you have any good tips on that?
Most of them are blue, variations of blue. Then it depends how much you want to pop in an interview. If you're going on to do an interview that maybe you might not want to do, then you want to probably tone it down, the blacks, the darker colors. But if you want to like really show, pop, be bright, you're talking about high energy, exciting things, then you could go to the colors of the reds, the pinks, the oranges, to match your color with actually whether you're trying to disappear or actually promote yourself. For men, it goes to the tie, same thing. If you're going on to talk about, death and suicides, you don't want your bright pink tie on. You want to look like you could go to a funeral. You want to keep it toned down. The main thing is just don't wear all white. For men, they'll show up and they're just wearing their work shirt but no jacket. You need a jacket. It just adds depth to the shot, breaks it up, takes away from all those wrinkles. If you don't have a jacket, find a friend with a jacket. Find one. Go to a store, buy one. Just get a jacket because it's going to help your appearance. And I think it also, if you're younger, it also gives you maybe more seniority to the audience. Gravitas, because let's face it, people make judgments quickly about how old you are and whether you're old enough to be doing that job. From someone who looked really, really young for a long, long time. They do. Look like the best version of yourself. So here's where you're changing the seat for some of you. You're the guest, you're not the anchor. If you're going over to someone else's show, if it's your show, yeah, you should look like your job. But if you work at one show and you're going somewhere else, you're not there to compete with the anchor. You don't need to look like that. You need to look like yourself. Not a host bot, okay? For women, you'll see that they'll go to the full extreme, and it's like they raided Elizabeth Dole's closet from the 1980s, okay? And it's this young woman in this boxy red suit with helmet hair, and she thinks that's how she's supposed to look on TV. Now, if she really is, that's truly who she is, great. But most of the time it's not. And so look like who you are. You may not wear a suit, so don't wear a suit. Wear a dress with sleeves. Wear a nice necklace. Wear a cardigan. Maybe you wear suits all the time. Then wear your suit. But look like the best version of you. Yes, put on makeup, but you don't need to go look like you went to the mall glamour shots. So those are the kind of things. High definition TV, unfortunately, means you have to take personal grooming to a whole new level. So invest in a magnifying mirror, because a good makeup artist will deal with the situation, but you are not guaranteed with a good makeup artist. So do a close check, and if you have an issue that you need help with, breakouts, etc., get someone to help you. Oftentimes you may have to point out to the makeup artist, can you just deal with this, because they don't want to hurt your feelings by pointing out the bad grooming issue. And then you see yourself on TV and you think, oh my God, why did someone not pull that hair out? So that's what this is about. I know this is really getting into the nitty gritty, but these are the things that cause you personal embarrassment for a very long time. The other part is what's on your teeth, red lipstick. What's in your teeth, did you just have lunch? And then the last thing I say is appoint a style counsel. A lot of, CEOs have their corp comm person. You may not. So even fashionable people make bad choices on TV. Even though you think you've made the right choice, call your fashion counsel person and say, I'm thinking about wearing this. And they're like, yeah, that's good. Know who that person is. Have a couple, and they'll help you out. So, on air, and this will get to the fidgeting issue. The first thing that you have to remember is you are hot. You are on mic from the moment you talk to that receptionist and show up. Because you don't want to say things that will haunt you. In the green room, to the makeup artist, because once you start talking smack, sometimes it's hard to tell your brain, I'm on the set, I've got to stop. So if you make a policy of, from the moment I hit that reception desk, I am only saying things that I would say on camera, it reduces the chances of you saying things that you shouldn't. The other thing is, when you are in the green room, people in broadcast will tell you, we will remember everything that you said. And we will tell our friends about it. The green room is not the isolation booth. The green room is not a cone of silence, okay? Don't treat it like that, because I will tell you this, the producers are not. So the thing is you don't let your guard down. Even when the interview is over, it's not over, because you don't know if they've really turned off that mic when they've gone to commercial. We've all seen the cases where that has, and it's come back to haunt them. So the best thing to do is from the moment you get out of your car or your mode of transportation to the moment you get back in it, you are on. The next thing is, regardless of how you are in person, you could be the biggest prick all day, I don't care, fine. The moment you hit that reception, you are generous, you say thank you say your pleases, you listen, you exude warmth. Why? Because when the camera flips on, you don't just flip it on like that. You have to actually warm up to being nice and pleasant. So when you're on air, you're nice and pleasant to the audience. I get this more in the CEO world, some will just think, oh, I just flip on the switch and I'm nice and happy. You gotta warm up to it. Then when you're in your car, go be a jerk. But when we're on air, this is about you conveying a message, in this case about your business, to an audience. And you want your audience to receive your message, not decide that you're the world's biggest jerk, okay? That's gonna work against you. So I say from the moment, car to car, you're nice. Otherwise, I don't care how you behave. The other part of it is don't sit in the chair. This is not watching Super Bowl. You know what you do, a lot of people forget, there we got a chair. You actually don't sit on your butt, okay? You sit on your hamstrings. So when you sit, you're not sitting, I'm not sitting in the chair, even though that may how it works. So if you don't know posture, you actually technically shouldn't be sitting on your butt to begin with. So a lot of people will roll their hips back. No, you sit on your hamstrings, this part. And that's where your balance should be. Yeah, I know. Is everyone like all of a sudden? So what happens when you're actually sitting on your hamstrings? It's a misnomer that you're supposed to sit on your butt. Your butt actually doesn't get, it's all here. So you're sitting on the edge of your chair. Well, when you sit on your hamstrings, as you noticed, it aligns your body automatically. So it moves your hips forward. It starts to contract your abs, right? Your shoulders actually go out that way. Your shoulders actually don't go back. Your shoulders don't live behind you. Your shoulders live this direction. So you want to make sure your arms and elbows actually live in front of you, because that's going to help bring the posture here. Remember, your shot is often here up, so how your shoulders, your chin should be up and out because your chin leads you. I don't know if you've noticed with show dogs, and they have the little treat, and all of a sudden the dog just aligns, right? It's because the handler knows exactly the angle of that treat that gets the dog's chin just so, and their body aligns. So your alignment is a mixture of your anchor here and your chin. So you want your chin up, not down here, so it moves your head forward. And that automatically brings your arms to the front. Some interviews are standing now, so how you stand. For women, there's a thing called the right model's pose. The right model's pose is this. Some version of foot in front, angled foot back here. For men, it's some more of a relaxed stance. What that does is it moves the hips, but the thing to remember in standing up, your abs to go down, your lats go up. So the way you stand forward is abs down, back up, lats support you, shoulders this way, and your back goes around like that. So these are things, so what it does, and remember your arms live in front of you, your shoulders don't live behind you, is it immediately pulls you up. There's research that shows it's actually not your appearance that causes first impression, it's your posture. So if you don't know how to align your body, and that is something you struggle with, and I do, absolutely do, there are posture therapists and stuff even in town that you can, physical therapists, if you work with a trainer, have them just help tell you where should your body live, memorize it, so when you're on camera you can immediately go into it. Because me standing in this mode is much better than when I really like to sit like this. There's a complete difference. The other part is when you are actually aligned, it allows you space to breathe, and that's what you need to talk with.
Does it matter when you're sitting what you do with your feet? Like, I'm so short that a lot of the time when I'm in an anchor set, like my feet
Yeah,
don't
don't
touch the
touch.
floor,
Yeah.
and I find myself like crossing my
Yeah.
ankles. But
Maybe-
then I'm like, is that?
Yeah, just crossing the ankles. So you do have the morning show sets where you see the whole body in a chair. Cross at the ankles, never the knees. Or even better yet, and you'll even see this with Kate Middleton, it's 2 knees together at an angle down. That's actually the best positioning if you can do it. Some people don't feel comfortable without having their ankles crossed, so you can cross like that. I'm wearing boots, it makes it hard. For men, once again, you're not in your lazy boy. Knees somewhat together. Sitting towards the chair. And also when you're sitting on your hamstrings, it allows you to engage forward. Having a conversation is a forward, slightly back thing. It's never back here. Yes?
What are your thoughts on how you move your hands when you talk?
Mhm.
If you do that a lot generally and
I
you're
do.
on camera, should you try and tone it down?
Do what comes naturally, don't think about it. If you do use your hands, make sure your nails are manicured, you haven't been out digging in the garden, that you're not like, for women, your manicure isn't everywhere. So you have to remember, people will see your hands. Bracelets, although I'm wearing them right now, just take them off. You don't need them. It's just going to describe. Watches, I mean, I just prefer to clear everything off because what happens with the watch, you're in a panel discussion and someone's boring as hell and you look at your watch and they get you on that shot. Just take your watch off. It's too tempting. Yeah.
I know, like, when I'm nervous, like, fidget with my hair.
Tie it back. So, yeah, I fidget with my hair when I am working a podium, but if I'm in a TV interview, I'm fine. So anytime I work a podium, my hair is always tied back because I will touch it, and I know that about myself, so it goes back. So just don't even question it. Tie it back. Or figure out a style that you like. The other fidgeting is the swivel. And we will hope that the studios fix that problem, but do not swivel. Just hold on to the desk, whatever you need to do, so you don't swivel. Sometimes people find by putting their hand on the desk that will reduce the swivel, but this is just not good. And they're not going to tell you to stop. That's the other thing. It's not like the interview is going to grab you and stop you. They're just going to let you swivel and look ridiculous. You probably, sometimes if you have a commercial break, they'll come on and say, don't swivel. But a lot of studios have gotten away from chairs that swivel to begin with. You will have some studios, your chairs are on rollers. Don't roll. Just get in there. They're going to usually have a marker on the table, align you to your marker, stay there. You can move your hands. You can move and your pivot. Remember, when you pivot your body, you're pivoting your body, not your whole body. So that goes into the posture thing. And you're engaging and you're looking at people eye to eye. So when your interviewer is asking you a question, you're looking at him. And then you're on a panel discussion, they've said something very interesting, even though you're not talking, you're watching them. Why? Because if you're looking somewhere else and they catch you on that camera, and let's say you do actually have opposing views, what's the assumption? You don't care, you're indifferent, you're rude, you won't listen. People can use those shots to mean a lot of things. So always make sure that you are watching where the conversation is. If the conversation moves to a screen and they're showing an image or a videotape, look at the screen. Basically, it's like, don't take your eye off the ball. And that interview ball is going to jump. Don't ever take your eye off that ball until you are out of the studio. So that also gets at the fidgeting issue, is if you are truly engaged on every single word, and you're truly listening for every bit of meaning, you're less likely to fidget. Some people have unconscious fidgeting, and you just have to find ways to deal with it. If it's this, get a pen and just learn how to hold a pen in your hand. And hold on to that pen for dear life until you get out of there. That's usually how we. Yes.
I remember
Yeah.
the clothing, we didn't talk about wearing mic-ready clothing.
Yeah. If you don't have, you want something that can clip on somewhere, so they'll pull it up. You can also think about where's the mic going to clip, and is it going to be easily accessible for my voice? But a lot of studio guys can pretty much mic anything. It's just sometimes you have to think about how much do I want to reveal to a studio tech as they wire me up the side, because my dress doesn't allow for them to put it under my jacket. For women, you just have to think, how much am I willing to let someone else touch me? And if you're someone who's like doesn't want hands places, for men it's often just your jacket, but for women it's actually a lot more issue. Do you want to have to unzip your dress, unbutton your shirt, whatever, so they can get the mic in, and then they have to do it to pull the mic back out. I actually was doing an interview with Shakira. The poor girl practically had to get undressed because of her outfit to get the mic on. But that's her image. I would expect no less. That's why we talked to her, right? We talked about eye contact. Okay, so this is the one where they will say, and I even say it as a producer, oh, don't worry, it's simply a conversation. It's dinner conversation. And I understand what I'm saying as a producer, because there's a certain tone. Like you say, you don't want an interview bot. You want an engaging conversation. But don't confuse that with getting beers at a pub, okay? Conversation is simply a tone and style, because ultimately you're in that chair for a deliberate dialogue. You're in that chair to exchange information, and every second counts. So no, this isn't a time to ask how are you and talk about random things. You are in there with a point of view that you need to convey in 90 seconds. There is not time for meandering conversation. If they wanted that, they would take you out to lunch. So don't think conversation is an excuse for rolling on in and just happen to be doing an interview. No, that will actually trip a lot of people up. You had a question?
Yeah, do you have a tip on how to pull off both? I mean, how to appear sort of conversational, but also not keeping your eye on the ball there?
Practice and listening. So the more you listen, okay, so the immediate fix, keep your eye on the ball and listen and engage and let everything else go out of your mind, okay? You don't see the camera, you don't see the crew, you don't know you're on air. If I am so focused on what you're saying, every word, and trying to think about it and how it relates back to my specialty, it's going to actually increase truthful communication, that organic conversation. But if I'm thinking, and I should know my messaging so well that I can tell you, really, the world needs more Cynjas because cyber threats are growing. They're really dangerous. You just keep on doing that, but I'm so focused. It will help. Ultimately, it's practice that comes down to making it comfortable. So here's the one thing that the journalist part of you is not going to want to hear and doesn't like. But I'm here to tell you, ultimately it's about you and your brand, and you have to look out for your own success, is you want to give them the answer that you want to give within their framework. Best example of this, when my book launched, it was right at the height of Snowden. I'm not there, and people thought, oh, you're just trying to train a bunch of Snowdens. Oh my gosh. I'm not there to talk about Snowden. In fact, I started my book a year before, but I don't need to get into all that because that's the whole catch. They want me to talk about Snowden, and I don't have anything really to add to the conversation, nor is talking about Snowden going to help sell kids' books. So I would get the question about Snowden. Now, I know why you're asking it as a journalist. Snowden's in the news. I need a news hook. Maybe they'll have something insightful. I've already told you my print interview. Anyway. So yeah, I'm like, there are plenty of, foreign policy experts. There are plenty of people who follow the intelligence community. What I'm writing is a children's book about how the internet works. And then I go into, cyber threats can be good. It's about good choices and bad choices. And what we're trying to do is to teach kids about the dangers in cyberspace. Okay. Not the exact answer, but you get where I'm going with that. Address the Snowden issue, changed it to convey my message.
I've also gotten that advice too, like if you don't have an answer to the question they ask, just answer a different
Yeah.
question in your mind.
Cyberbullying. I get asked a lot about cyberbullying. Cyberbullying, there are so many important and complementary organizations to our own who convey valuable messages about cyberbullying. What we focus on is teaching kids how the internet works, how that email gets from one account to the other. Same thing. Dodge the cyberbullying, because to be quite honest, I could talk about it, but it doesn't add value to me. My unique differentiator in the market is that we teach kids how the internet works. It's not about teaching kids about bullying. So it's the exact same thing as that. So I explain that as answering the question answering the question with the answer you want within their framework.
I think you can also, I've also gotten asked questions where I like just didn't know the
Yeah.
answer, like they wanted a specific number or something like that. And I'll just say what I can tell you.
Mhm.
I just don't answer their
Or,
questions.
Exactly.
oh, that brings up an interesting point
Right.
about the debate
But this
over-
other thing that I
yeah.
actually can answer.
How harmful is that to your brand to be like, I don't know, I once got asked the position of a politician on
Mhm.
something, I didn't know. Like, how
So,
harmful is that?
okay, so I would say if you're a reporter giving a 2A, you don't want to convey bad information. If you're a person representing a brand, there are chances you can connect it to something else. A specific politician, maybe he's a Republican, maybe you can talk about a Republican point of view on a very high level.
So
Yeah,
it's
I would
okay to be
never
like, you know
say-
what, I'm not sure exactly on that, but let me
You don't even have to say, I'm not sure. You can just say, the Republicans are saying.
I would never say,
Change that.
I don't know. I would like pull out one of those. That's
Yeah.
an interesting,
Yeah.
it raises an interesting point, and then like,
Yeah, and move it back. So remember the messaging document that we started with? This is how it all links back. I have 5 messages in my head, and I can answer any question you throw at me with one of those 5 answers. I'm just going to basically change and customize the first few words that I say. Everything comes back to the world needs more Cynjas. I can make it happen time and time again. So that's where you're messaging, why you write that little document out. And then as you're going through all the steps and figuring out what you're going to wear and combing your hair and all that, you're thinking about the messaging in your head, which goes back to how do you stay conversational? Well, hopefully you've been having this conversation at least with yourself for the amount of time from the time you got booked to the time you go on air. And that just means, you know what? That email you need to write back about drinks tonight with a friend, ignore it. That means anything else in your life, ignore it. When you are done with that interview, life resumes because you have too much at stake. So if you're doing a video chat, we see this. This is time to take down your posters, your pinup girls. The pinup girls is a problem more in the tech world than anything. You have an engineer with some pinup girl behind him. Make your workspace look, as professional and uncluttered as possible. And then I'm going to add in here, if you're doing a radio interview, landline, you remember those? Use it. You may not have one. I don't have one, but I know friends who do. And so when I get asked to do a radio interview, I start calling my friends with landlines like Linda and Jenny. Like, hey, can I come down and use your landline today? Why? Because still cell phones cut out, the sound quality is different, it's too uncertain. In radio, if it's breaking news, yes, I'll deal with a cell phone, but if I don't have to, go get a landline. And then a landline locked up in a closet, even better. So you can really cut out all the noise. If you're, it's amazing. You can hunt down landlines in airports and lounges in the USO. You can make friends with the guy at baggage claim. He'll let you use his landline. Like, there are landlines. Go find them, use them. It will improve the quality of your radio interviews significantly.
on the first question point, I've been told the opposite, that it's like, you never know if they're gonna cut away from you after the first question, so make sure your first answer is as on point as you can make it.
Yes, within a short period of time, but it's not time to give the whole blah, 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 blah. See, that's where you have to prioritize what's my top message. If there's one thing someone has to walk away with, what is it? Can I say it in a short period of time? I'm not giving you exact seconds, because if you're doing a 30-minute interview, clearly you have more time. If you're only doing 90 seconds, what do they need to know that you can say in 20 seconds? If you're doing a 30-minute interview, what do they need to know within 2 to 3 minutes? The challenge is, at the NewsHour, we get this a lot, is people thought they were going in for a test, and that first question, on and on and on, and you had other guests, and you're like, I was going to ask you that, but they need to either A, prove how smart they are, or they think no one's coming back to them, and it just ruins the whole thing. So that's where you have to prioritize your messaging. But yeah, just don't be a time hog. So that's what I had. You know, this is ultimately, that's your team helping you out. Don't do this alone. You know, create it. And there you are. You're smiling and happy with all your gear on and being successful. So that's my 2 cents for today. If there's anything I have not answered, let me know. As I said, it's kind of strange because usually the reason why I train people one-on-one is you deal with a lot of very personal information. When you're a CEO, you don't necessarily want the whole world to see your flaws. And so the only way we can train media at that level is if we're in a room by ourselves, having tough conversations. Yes?
Yeah, so I'm a writer online, and I say,
yeah.
I mean, I insert every possible modifier.
Yeah.
Before I actually say something.
Yeah.
How do you get yourself to stop?
Just start typing your messaging. You know, that piece I showed you, okay, type it out, and you just have to keep practicing, so you just start breaking that, and it may be that you just start practicing now, and you say, okay, this is a story, let's pretend I'm going to have an interview, I'm going to type out one quick message, and just practice it so you can break it. A lot of times the ums and ahs means your brain has to catch up with you, and that means your messaging isn't in your head and you're not confident about it. It's usually a gap in how the brain deals with delay of information. So how do you know you're messaging fast? And part of it is how you, once you get practice in spitting out fast, then it'll just eventually go away. Yeah.
What if you're on the flip side?
Okay.
And you're interviewing someone, let's say in a live scenario where you can't edit it out later, and the other person has been trained by you, and you sort of want to cut through the messaging. What is the way to keep my brand? What's your advice on how not to come across, you know, in a live setting where you don't want to come across as sort of a jerk,
Right.
but you still want to come across credibly as calling them out and just get it and pulling them back? How do you handle that?
So, first of all, I hope that the people I train are not message bots, because I don't actually sit there and train them to repeat the same. But no, there are people who do, and they think that's the way to. So how do you deal with someone that's so coached? And it's just, you know, at that point, it's asking the questions, but at some point they've been so trained that they won't get off topic, and that works against them. And I would hope that they eventually realize that. I mean, there's one thing having a conversation and bringing up, when I say messaging, I'm not saying to memorize it, I'm just saying to remember the key points, but deliver those key points in a way that's conversational with you, that addresses the question that you're asking me. And I can tell you that no, my nephew is healthy, he is at home, and he is enjoying being a Cynja. So the fact, you know, I'm not sure what you asked me to get to that question, but I'm engaging with you on it. But the point I hit is that kids need to know about cybersecurity. But a lot of times it's just re-asking question, and if they are so coached, don't have them back.
I've noticed that what has worked for me is when I ask them the question and I just let silence fill the conversation, and it makes it uncomfortable, and then they keep talking because they don't want the silence either. That has worked for me. I just let the silence linger.
Yeah. Sometimes I'll also pick out like you said this, what does that mean? Like you force them to like pick apart what they said. Sometimes that way. Another piece of advice our media team gives us is avoid saying I think.
It's true.
in the context of being a journalist, if you're talking about a story you wrote, because you're not coming on to say what you think, you're coming on to say what the facts are, and that's a habit I get into where I'm like, oh, that's interesting. I think what that means, you know, and like
Yeah,
that's
exactly.
another like.
It just ate, 2 seconds?
Yeah.
And you're not, you know, most of the time you're never put on there for what you truly think. You're put on there because of a purpose, what you represent, who you can convey information on behalf of. You know, just going back to your point, one of the challenges we deal with CEOs is that they, you know, you walk in the room and they've been so coached to the point they can no longer think and be human. It's a real issue. It works against them. And a lot of that is dialing it back. And I'm telling them TV interviews are not plays. You don't need to have it memorized. And sometimes if you get a chance to talk to them, if you are in a green room situation and you can immediately catch whether they've been coached. Just so you know when you're going in to interview them, okay, this person is so coached that I'm going to have to work really hard. Or the other thing you can throw at them too in the green room is, I really want, and I've done this before, I haven't told them everything I'm going to ask them in their guidance beforehand, and drop, you know, one of the bombs on them in the green room. Catches them a little bit more unprepared.
But still they get a chance to sort of.
A little bit. There's a difference between seeing in the green room and having 8 hours with their media coach.
Right.
It's not playing nice, but it's all about winning.
Any last questions? Okay, Stacey?
There's this TV executive that speaks at an award show every year.
Yeah.
And she's like trembling, and she also slows her words. You can see that she's slowing her words, and she's gotten better over the years. What would you recommend to her? Is it just something that you have to keep practicing?
Is it a physical impediment? Does she have a disability?
I don't think she has I think she's just nervous.
She doesn't practice enough. So when we're dealing with corporate CEOs that are presenting a keynote or a podium, well, Steve Jobs used to practice for 4 days ahead of time. Tim Cook's down to 3. When I say practice, I'm not talking like he does an hour and goes on. They practice. A lot of times they'll give that speech over 200 times.
Really?
Yeah.
Same speech. Just
Same
to
speech.
sort of
When
hit the right-
I work with a CEO who's going to main stage keynote, we're talking 200 to 300 times.
Wow.
By
Where
the
do they
time you
practice?
deliver, in the office, in a hotel room, airport lounge, conference room, wherever we meet up in the world. Yeah, you can practice anywhere. And we will practice in dosage. It's 2 weeks before, a week before, the day before. But a lot of times when you have a lot of nervous, it is someone who's very nervous, they need to practice more and more to the point that it becomes mechanical in the sense of the words are coming out, because it's not an interview at this point. They have to keynote an audience. And there are also techniques that they can use. On nervous is it's one idea, one person. So I'm focused on giving you that idea, but when I move to my second idea, I'm really going to talk to you. And I'm focused on you because I'm going to have a third idea. And I want to connect. So I'm so focused on that it helps reduce nerves for some people.
Here's an anecdote that may put you at ease a little bit. So I was sitting next to Stephanopoulos at the dinner, and he didn't eat his salad. And I said, aren't you going to eat something before you leave? And he said, no, I never eat before I speak because I'm too nervous.
Yeah.
George Stephanopoulos. And
Yeah.
I said, how can that be? This is what you do for a living. And he said, my interviews are in a controlled situation. I know exactly what's going to happen, and I'm in control of it. I'm not in control of 1,000 people out in a dinner. They might talk over me, the AV might not work. It was just a really interesting take from a professional.
A lot of CEOs don't eat before their keynotes because they don't want to worry about other issues that may crop up. They can't make no, seriously, like they can't make quick exits. They can't drink 3 beers and like go out there. Like they will even be careful on how much fluid they consume, because you can't walk off the stage. So all those kind of things are often, some of them even plan their diet the day before on what they.
And like there's always, like I've had the IFB be on the wrong channel before. So we go live and like all of a sudden they're talking and I can see them talking and I'm not hearing them, I'm hearing something else. And what I do is I always am like, if I were watching the evening news with a pro, how would they handle this situation? And so it's just like, oh, I think we're having some technical difficulties. I'm having trouble understanding you or something. And that's a cue to the producer to like fix the situation.
And I love what you say when you say, I watch and how would the professionals handle it. Watch TV. Watch how the pros, like the good ones, do it. And the other thing to listen to good commercial voiceovers. When you talk about the good ones, we'll have really organic, truthful communication in that voiceover, but it's clearly scripted, so that's a good one to learn and listen to.
Who do you think are examples of good ones? Performance-wise, forget editorial.
What I like are the Kaiser Permanente ads, right? That will run with Allison Janney. She has a great delivery on what she's doing, and it's well done. But I mean, you can't go wrong with Bob Schieffer, who mixes personality with delivery, with also dealing with a moving room. I mean, I think I personally like his style, but you just find someone you connect with, whether, you know, it's George Stephanopoulos in the morning. I like NPR in the sense of the listening, but you don't want to get caught into their style because you need to do more than public radio. But I think that they're very good at listening to people and also dealing with all kinds of answers.
And they're great at editing. And I'm going to wrap this up right here because I don't want to cut into any of your group time.
Exactly.
Heather, thank you
You're
so
welcome.
much. This was really fun.